I bought my competition. That's right, I own WCW. And with that, the Monday Night Wars have come to a close. I'm John Renton with the retro review of the final Nitro. It's bittersweet, in all honesty, but you know what? I want you to take a look at something. This is all that's left of the notepad where I had all the notes that I wrote for WCW from the reboot episode all the way to the very end. And it's been a hell of an odyssey, and I don't think I'm going to do the invasion angle. I might review select episodes, but you know what? It's time to close this chapter, and it is bittersweet, though, because there were a lot of people who still had a lot to give to wrestling, and some did by coming to WWE and not being utilized, the aforementioned invasion angle. And it was kind of cool to have the simulcast. It's just weird that Bischoff's group almost had it, and then Jamie Kellner pulled the TV deal, and then Vince McMahon bought it for like pennies on the dollar. I mean, he bought it for so little money that a couple wrestlers could have pooled their resources together and bought it, for God's sakes. But yeah, it opens with Vince McMahon saying, imagine that. Me, Vince McMahon, on WCW television. Well, how can that be? How in the world can I be on Turner Networks? Well, it's simple. I bought my competition. That's right. I own WCW. And the very fate of WCW is in my hands. And this was perfect for Vince because he could be the maniacal jackass that everybody in WCW felt that he was, at least the WCW diehards. And I will say, as somebody that watched WCW from beginning to end, as far as like Nitro, Thunder, all that and everything, the pay-per-views, just watching all that, it was the end of an era. I can't say enough, before I get into more of the show here, I can't state, enough how much fun it was to watch the Monday Night Wars. To either tape Raw and watch Nitro live, or vice versa, which pay-per-view. Even though they usually didn't go head-to-head, they were on different Sundays, or in the case of Road Wild, Hog Wild, they were on Saturdays. The whole point is it was healthy competition. The ratings were spiking like crazy. The wrestlers were making incredible money, at least for that time. It was so goddamn great, and we're never going to have that again. And I just want to say right now, the whole Wednesday Night War thing that's coming to an end, it wasn't a war. It was just two brands that were trying to juice things up when that time has come and gone. We're never going to get a time like that. And sure, there are some things on both shows that have not aged well at all. From, mid-90s WCW pay-per-views to the Vince Russo era, to some stuff on WWE television, like, the Terry Reynolds miscarriage angle and a whole bunch of other stuff. Or stuff on WCW television like, let's see, the whole Sting-Hogan bullshit at Starrcade 97, where they got their biggest pay-per-view buy, or at least one of their biggest pay-per-view buys, as far as, revenue and everything. They made a whole lot of money building up that storyline, and then paying it off with a popcorn fart. And they were still doing really good ratings. Goldberg gave them a shot in the arm. They were doing some really good stuff. But Starrcade 98, the Finger Poke of Doom, and so many other things, along with the AOL Time Warner merger, led to the downfall of WCW. And everybody being out for themselves, except for a lot of the younger guys that wanted to try and, do good and build a company. And there were just so many veterans and so many people that had guaranteed money. Watching what they did to WCW is actually baffling. And it's kind of disgusting because WCW, I don't know if Bischoff's group could have saved it beyond maybe a few more years. I don't know what the fate of WCW would have been. I don't think it would have still been going even now. But I would have liked to have seen what could have happened. Even, the weird person in me, just, somebody that just would have wanted to see, hey, would it really still been a train wreck, or could they have done what NWA TNA did, just with maybe a bit of a bigger budget at the time? Whole point is we're never going to know. We did get NWA TNA, we got Ring of Honor, we got a whole bunch of other, independents that grew into bigger promotions and are still doing their own thing. And the memories of WCW continue to live on. You can see the influence and the fact that Vince McMahon keeps bringing back WCW people from the past. Goldberg being in a championship match in 2021 for no goddamn reason. And AEW bringing on Sting and Shivani and Paul White, a.k.a. The Giant, and a whole bunch of others. And it was just such a fun time. The Monday Night Wars were such a goddamn fun time. I cannot state enough just how goddamn cool it was. And Vince McMahon opens with that, and then we get Shivani and Scott Hudson talking about the fate of WCW, the future. Where are we going to get our paychecks? What's going to happen? Vince McMahon's bought the company. What else does he want to say? And they do a night of champions thing where they crown the champions they want that are willing to take less money, get out of their WCW contracts to come to work for WWE. And a very ill-fated invasion angle, which, I'm not going to ever forgive Vince and everybody in charge for basically ruining that. And I'm not saying that the WCW B and C team, I mean, to be fair, there wasn't a huge amount of star power. There was DDP, there was Booker T, but as far as like Sting, he didn't want to take a contract. I don't blame him. He got, his AOL Time Warner money. Luger couldn't have contributed anyway, so it's just as well that piece of shit ended up going away. Jeff Jarrett got fired live on, air because Vince McMahon still wasn't happy with what he did for, asking for a couple $100,000 or maybe it was $300,000, whatever the story is, to lose the title to China, the Intercontinental Championship at No Mercy 99 before coming back to WCW and being the chosen one. It's actually kind of hilarious just looking at how WCW was a company that beat themselves twice. Because you think about it, Ted Turner acquired WCW, Jim Crockett Promotions, even though they, made some decisions that led to them being in the hole. Had Vince McMahon not blocked them on pay-per-view, they would have been able to probably go on for a while. Ted Turner buys the company, puts the wrong people in charge. Hello, Jim Herd. Didn't see you there, you dumb son of a bitch, you stupid asshole. Basically ruining the whole goddamn thing. The Ding Dongs and a whole bunch of other stuff. Wanted to make Ric Flair Spartacus. Ric Flair got the last laugh by being part of WCW at the very end. While Jim Herd basically rotted. But anyway, they basically fell into a goddamn hole. They stopped doing house shows. They rose back to prominence with Bischoff and the right people in charge. And they got the hot angle with the NWO. They got the Cruiserweights. They got a whole bunch. They juiced that thing up. It was making tons of money. Sure, they were spending a lot of money, but they were making a ton of money. And then when they stopped making a ton of money and things started to fracture, well, then they didn't know how to keep it hot. And then they did the finger poke of doom and all that and all the stuff I talked about before. So, yeah, this one's going to run a little bit longer than normal in case you can't tell because it's wrapping up all this history into one video. And you can't do that with WCW. You just can't. You can only give the overview. I mean, there's been some great books about WCW, various shooter interviews from people that have been part of the company from beginning to end or even certain periods. And again, Shivani and Scott Hudson talk about the fate of WCW. Flair then comes out and cuts a promo that went on for a while, but it made sense. Flair was yelling about Vince having WCW's fate in his hands. And he goes over the various talents in WCW, all over the history, just so many years. Flair got emotional about all the people that were going to be out of a job, but you don't control us. Even though Flair has stated in interviews since that he was so happy to see that company close down, he felt bad for the people that lost their job, but as far as an infrastructure and as far as anybody that basically led to that company being so goddamn shitty, he was happy to see it close down. It was embarrassing the last year, and he's right. Even though there were some positives in the last year of WCW from the reboot episode and everything, in spite of Vince Russo's bad booking, his shit booking, because Vince Russo never belonged in wrestling at all, there was still some good stuff in WCW the last year. But it was just so much of a shell of a company. It was just so creatively bankrupt. I don't even say morally bankrupt because everybody, I think, was trying to do what they could, but they beat themselves so badly twice that when they lost like $15 million in 99, they lost $60 million in 2000. Yes, the merger, as people have pointed out, and as you can Google the figures, the AOL Time Warner merger did cost a whole lot more money. A lot of money was lost by doing this said merger. But still, WCW, had it not lost all that money, had it lost maybe a couple $1 million, maybe they could have salvaged it. But it lost so much, they pulled the plug. And it's a real shame. Flair talks about, we were neck and neck with you for years. Your father was on the NWA board of directors and voted for me to get a run with the NWA championship in 1981 while you were struggling to be a TV announcer. And then, talk about, well, you can't hold us hostage. We're going to beat you. We're going to do this. We're going to rise back up. Oh, Flair, you were trying really hard there. You were trying really hard. He challenges Sting to one last match. And they would never have another match again. Ignore the match in TNA. It doesn't exist. Let's just forget about Flair's run in TNA because it was really goddamn bad. TNA did a lot of really good shit. Bringing Flair in was not one of those things. So anyway, we have a Randy Savage Slim Jim ad. Now, I don't know why that's funny to me, but it just is. So anyway, Booker T versus Scott Steiner. Booker T, the U.S. champion, and Scott Steiner, the WCW World Heavyweight champion. Well, Steiner tries to hit him with his pipe, and he tried to kill him. Oh my God! And then eventually bookend 1, 2, 3. It had a big fight feel, but it was short. And he is a new double champion. And then he would go on to be the double champion. He would drop Austin, unfortunately, on his head, doing an announcer's table spot. He didn't mean to, but it just was what it was. I think it was a King of the Ring 2001. I may have to review the pay-per-views, but we'll see. So then Spring Breakout, 2001, sponsored by AOL 6.0, I think is what it was, 6.0, 7.0, and 1-800-COLLECT. The Beach Girls tried to sound like they could count to 1-800 or even spell collect. That was adorable. So, Vince, we do more simulcast stuff. We cut to Raw. I am going to be reviewing the Raw episode, by the way, and that one will probably be significantly shorter because it's the go-home Raw for Mania 17, which I will retro-review because it's, in my opinion, the greatest Mania of all time. Even though I recognize it did end the Attitude Era, and the ending with Stone Cold Steve Austin and Vince McMahon was really goddamn stupid. Austin should have not turned heel. But Vince, well, he, it's like where, he knocks WCW like where they're holding the last show. They're holding it at like, some kind of outside bar. What the hell are they doing with a whole bunch of drunk beach bums? And then 2 out of 3 counts, so more and Courageous. Courageous that had two of Kerry Von Erich's right feet after 1986. At least he wrestled like he did. Took on the Young Dragons, and they took on Ray and Kidman. So a 3-way dance, number 1 contenders match. The winning team gets a Cruiserweight Tag Team Championship match later in the evening. Because they only had a small crew because they weren't going to fly everybody else down there because some people were sitting out their contracts and others were like, okay, why should we show up? So it was fine. It wasn't dull. It was a bit of a mess at times, but Ray gets a leg drop off the ropes on more 1, 2, 3. And then Vince has Trish celebrate with some champagne, but decides instead of just celebrating with drinks, they're going to make out. And the champagne cork pops. Because it's such good shit, pal. This is after Trish was made to bark like a dog, and then actually she would screw over Vince with, not drugging Linda McMahon, who was in a persistent vegetative state, so like Vince has made Linda, Vince made Linda like into that, and Linda's been that same way all the way through her time in politics. Seriously, have you ever heard her talk? You ever seen her talk? She doesn't look like she knows where the fuck she's at. So, Chavo takes on Shane Helms, and it's a Cruiserweight Championship match. Wasn't bad, good pace, these two work well together. Chavo was a tremendous heel, but he isn't able to counter the Vertebreaker a second time. 1, 2, 3, Helms retains the title. I like some of the Sugar Dancers, or whatever the hell their names were. Oh, Sugar Babies, I think was their name. That kind of sounds a little bit wrong, but the dancers that he had with him, I liked about 3 of them. Anyway, Booker talks about, closing this chapter, but there are more pages left in this book. I see what you did there. So Cole asked Vince about WCW fans and wrestlers wondering about the future. He says, well, how do you like your job? Oh, Vince, you would have done us all a favor if you'd just taken Cole off of commentary. You could have kept him in the company, but we wouldn't have had to have endured Michael Cole on commentary for the last 20 years, plague our ears, rot our ears out, and be one of the worst long-running wrestling commentators in wrestling history. Lance Storm and Mike Awesome, they get out there for the Canadian National Anthem. And then Palumbo and O'Hare, get out there, and it's for the WCW Tag Team Championships. Commentary was super emotional because it's getting near the end. They only have a few matches. Like 20% of this was cutting into Raw because it was a simulcast because Vince McMahon had bought the company. Shanton Bomb on Mike Awesome, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so Palumbo and O'Hare retained the Tag Team Championships. Really, the only title that changed was, well, actually 2 of the titles changed, but I digress. Here's Miss Hancock to introduce Sean Stasiak. One of my followers, if he happens to be watching this, was perfectly fine anytime Miss Hancock, a.k.a. Stacy Keibler, was on camera. I joke because he liked her. To be fair, hard not to like her because she stands out, literally and figuratively. So, Stasiak took on Bam Bam Bigelow. By the way, if Bam Bam won, he would get to tattoo Sean Stasiak. This was the kind of stipulation they felt would draw a rating on the last Nitro. Stacy distracts and Rude Awakening 1, 2, 3. That's it. That was Bam Bam Bigelow's last known, U.S. televised match. I don't think he... Did he wrestle in NWA TNA? Genuine question. I'm actually trying to remember. I know he wrestled in Japan for a bit. Regal then has a WrestleMania 17 jersey that he shows off for Vince. Hey, check this jersey out. You know the jersey that you had made? You want to see it? Here it is. We're killing time here. And Vince says, well, why are you here? Well, WCW's really awful. You sure you want to buy them? You sure you want to associate with them? What the hell's your problem? He doesn't say that last part, but it leads to a line from commentary a little bit later. DDP, he loved every second of it, and it's time to take it to the next level. And then he became the Undertaker wives stalker. Well, his wife at the time. Because Taker bounced around from marriage to marriage like he bounced, donations to a certain idiot in charge. It's no longer in charge, thankfully. Thank fuck. Hooray! Anyway, yeah, the Taker, having his wife stalked, that was stupid. That was a bad use of DDP, and I don't understand it. So, a short video package of champions like Luthez, Dory Funk Jr., Dusty Rhodes, and various others. So many world champions, NWA to WCW, and all in between. And then Vince is like, it's just about time. It's still so funny that he fired Jeff Jarrett on the live broadcast. I don't know why that's funny. Jeff, Jone, gone, because he's gonna, he fired him right there. And then we got NWA TNA, which was good at the time and now just sort of exists. Kid Romeo and Elix Skipper take on Ray and Kidman. Cruiserweight tag title match. These titles, by the way, were introduced, or the first champions were crowned at Greed, which was 8 days prior to this. And Kidman and Ray faced Skipper and Romeo. Well, Kid Romeo, that is. Not Romeo, wherefore art thou? Not when Piper called Paul Roma Romeo. Bit weird how he called him that. Paul Roma, pretty good worker. Anyway, it's weird how they had this rematch here, but they were like, hey, Skipper and Romeo don't want to come to the company. Hey, Ray and Kidman, you want to? Ray wouldn't come to the company for like a year and a half, though, after this. But Kidman would. And they won the Cruiserweight Tag Team Championships, and those were the last Cruiserweight Tag Team Champions. To be fair, the titles were a bad idea anyway. I don't mind tournaments, but I think even with the reboot, I don't think it would have worked. I think you could have done not a Cruiserweight Heavyweight Championship. That wouldn't have made any sense, but just you could have maybe spiced up the Cruiserweight division a little bit instead of tag titles. Because they really had to scrape the bottom of the barrel, even no disrespect to the talents, to get any, field of 8 like filled out there. So Shivani did say during this match, well, Regal, we've had to do some crazy things, like put your ass over on broadcast. Shivani had had enough by this point, and I don't blame him. But yeah, Kid Crusher on Skipper, 1, 2, 3. New champs and final champs. So Sting says, well, we're going to end it right. And the only thing for sure with Sting is that nothing's for sure. And so do these beachgoers have any clue how to spell AOL? That's what I'm wondering. How many of them were even halfway sober before the camera started rolling? Vince is walking down the hall. How you doing, pal? Does he have any idea why a midget was a security guard? Sting versus Flair. And Rick hadn't wrestled, I think he had said 6 to 9 months. The last time he wrestled, I think, was when he was feuding with Vince Russo, which was sometime in the summer. So, yeah, that was pretty goddamn stupid. Commentary talks about, the uncertain future and how Sting meant so much to WCW. He bled, he sweat WCW. And they mentioned that Flair was WCW, but the Sting was the heart and soul of it. Because he came over from the UWF when Bill Watts' company had gone under, and basically Jim Crockett Promotions bought it, and then Sting got the Clash of Champions 1 match with Ric Flair and did all this great shit, and it was really, really good stuff, super emotional. The match was just secondary because it was all about revisiting history. They faced off on the first Nitro. They faced off at Clash of Champions 1, like I said. They faced off, were supposed to face off at Wrestle War. They faced off at Great American Bash 1990, where Sting won. With the dudes with attitudes. Elegante handcuffed to Ole Anderson. Ole Anderson handcuffed to a minority. He must have loved that. He didn't. Ole Anderson, a very sour individual. But anyway, all this history, all the stuff they've done. Ric Flair somehow convincing Sting to be his tag partner at Halloween Havoc 95 and then screwing him over because he's Ric Flair. So, they faced off, and Flair took a big superplex. He wore a shirt because he hadn't wrestled in a while, and even though he was in good shape, he wasn't sure of himself, and he has confidence destroyed. I don't blame him, because they butchered him a lot after he came back with that emotional return in Charlotte in September of 98, and after he became president for life when he beat Hogan at Uncensored 99 in the barbed wire first blood steel cage match. WCW had a lot of really good ideas, and then they had some stuff where you're like, how in the world did this make air even when the company was successful? So, like I said, big superplex, Scorpion deathlocks on, and there we go. The deathlocks on, and Flair taps out. They hug. It's a great night for this sport. That's the end of the portion of WCW. That's it. If anything else happened and they just interspliced it, I don't really remember, because WWE taken over. Like I said, 20% of the show was dedicated to WWE. And then we cut to Vince McMahon wanting to be reintroduced because he is the chairman. And even though the XFL basically failed by this point, I bought my competition. Time Warner was practically begging me to buy WCW. I will sign the contract. They've signed the contract. I will sign it at Mania. When Ted Turner comes down, I put Ted Turner in the corner because nobody puts Turner in the corner, except Vince, because that's what he said he would do. And he would make sure that that Turner would see what he would do to his son Shane. He also said how to become a billionaire? By becoming one yourself. You gotta grab your competition by the throat, and you gotta squeeze the life out of your competition. Benoit's ears were burning. So, Vince was cutting a promo, not necessarily of his life, but he was doing some really good shit here. And then, there's an old expression, he who laughs last, laughs best. What to do with WCW? Do we put it on the shelf? Do we turn it into a media conglomerate? What do we do? What do we do with WCW? And help me out here. What do you want to do with some of these talents? Hogan, up or down? And we get, some pop, some booze. Luger, Buff Bagwell. I mean, nobody really liked Buff Bagwell. I don't even know I think only Buff Bagwell and his mother liked Buff Bagwell. Booker T, up or down? Booker T got a bit more of a reaction. Big Papa Pump, he got a bit of a bigger reaction. Goldberg chants, and they said Sting. Sting got a pop, Goldberg got a pop. Okay, they could have done that, and brought them in, but no, they had them wait out their they waited out their Time Warner contracts, which I don't blame them. They earned their money. If they wanted to get that, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. Because they had a lot of money tied up in those guys, and that's probably where part of the money that they lost. They probably were paying them a few $1 million each, so honestly, those guys just wanted to sit at home and rest and everything and not wrestle and just rest their bodies and earn their money. Can't fault them for that. I would have made that kind of deal if I was them. But then he's like, instead of gloating, I could have flown down to WCW and given the fans a piece of my mind. But how appropriate that they're in a beer hall. Now, to be fair, it kind of looked cool, but I also think there were maybe 2,000 people there for the final Nitro. And after taking a look at where Nitro started with the Mall of America and looking at the other stuff they had, and then by the end they were taping Nitro, or they were having Nitro live and then taping Thunder right afterwards, and that's why you would hear so many muted reactions for Thunder. They couldn't even fill venues for Nitro in the last year and a half or so, and then Thunder had even less of a reaction. Even though, and I knock Thunder, and I'm going to continue to knock Thunder anytime I do other WCW reviews, but I guarantee you I am never taking on doing a full year of WCW again. Because not just my age, but just the amount of, work I got to do and the amount of other reviews I got to do. This was fun, and it's ultimately the big blow-off. And maybe down the road I might do the invasion angle at some point. But I don't think I really can right now. But anyway, back to Vince. He's like, I would line the stars up and say, you're fired, and WCW will remain buried. And then, I deserve respect. You will respect me, or because I'm Vince McMahon, damn it. And here's Shane. Shane's in Cleveland? Because Raw was in Cleveland. Oh no, he's in Panama City. What's he doing there? And he rips off the mask against Eric Bischoff. No, that would come about a year and a half later, because they would have Bischoff be... No, wait. That would actually be, a year and a half later. The years kind of blend together for me. Bischoff would be the pastor, and he would rip off the mask. 3 minutes! Anyway, so he says, well, you're there in Cleveland, and I'm here in Panama City in a WCW ring. And your ego got the best of you. The contract, the name on the contract does say McMahon, but it says Shane McMahon. We kicked your ass or WCW kicked your ass before. It will kick your ass again, like I will this Sunday. Perfect hook. They hype up the tag match. It's going to be Rock and I think it's going to be Rock. It was Rock and Austin against Taker and Kane, and then the final graphic. The final graphic was good night and goodbye. Satellite over. And that's all I got to say right there. I'm not, you know what? I am going to crumble these up, though, because it's fitting, because I had to go through a whole lot of bullshit with WCW. But it was fun. It was really fun. I want you guys to let me know what's your opinion on the Legacy of WCW. There was more good than bad. There was. I'm not going to pretend like there wasn't a lot of bad, especially in the last 2 years. And even at their height, they did some stupid shit. But they were just turning chicken shit into chicken salad. And then later, they were taking any chicken salad and turning it into rotten chicken shit. Like, some of the stuff that would gag you and gag anybody that was within 50 feet of it. Nobody wanted to touch WCW. But anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments. That is the end. That is the end. The ultimate end. I made it. It is done. Agree, disagree with what I said? Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm Charm Rickland. I'll see you soon.